everybody, what's up and welcome to episode 62 of Into the Necrosphere. Today I'm going to be joined by the great John Jarvis of Scour, Agoraphobic Nosebleed, Nest, Fulgora. He's been in Big Destroyer, he's been in a bunch of bands. The man has gotten around and he had plenty of great stories to tell, many of which he told over the course of our hour-long conversation, so I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy that thoroughly. Also coming up on the show, I'm going to be talking about some new music, including the new Lautreamont record, a really cool black metal band out of Russia, as well as the new Nårdegaist, and I'm going to be talking about some metal news. There's a lot to talk about, lots happened this week, both in metal and otherwise, and if you want to hear me rant on like a lunatic for 15 minutes at the end of the show, then stick around for that. But first, it is time for another demo of the week. The young bucks from a band called Bourn Ultra got in touch with me. Bourn Ultra is a band out of Los Angeles. They make black metal that they describe as a Lovecraftian. It sounds to me an awful lot like the new Inquisition record if Dagon hadn't turned into a wimp. So I really enjoyed this. They have they're not. This isn't really a demo. This is a record, but because they're unsigned, they can join the hallowed halls of my demo elite. The track I'm going to be playing to you is off their record Aphatime Masters that came out in 2018, and the song is called Thrall to the Expanse. To the Expanse by Bourn Ultra off a record called Aphatime Masters. Check them out on Bandcamp and YouTube. I'll post the links in the description to the podcast. And thank you very much to them for getting in touch. Thoroughly enjoyed their stuff. And if you heard that and felt inspired and wanted to join the ranks of the Into the Necrosphere demo of the week, then send me your best shit to intothenecrosphere@gmail.com. You can also drop me a line on social media. The show is on Instagram and Facebook at Into the Necrosphere and on Twitter at iNecrosphere. So drop me a line, and if I like what I hear, I will feature it on the show. And who knows, if I really like what I hear, I might have you on as a guest. Speaking of which, next week, my guest is Sam Bean of the Antichrist Imperium and Werewolves. If ever there was a show or an episode that you guys needed to listen through end to end, it is this one. We spoke for over 2 hours. He is an absolute fucking boss of a dude, and in my opinion, one of the best podcasts that I've ever done. But you know, for the most part, I enjoy almost all of them. I thoroughly enjoyed last week's with Evan Hopper of Quell, and thank you very much to everyone for the really, really great response that I had for that. If you haven't checked it out yet, the show is available on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or pretty much anywhere that you listen to podcasts on. And if the spirit moves you to do so, then please do leave me a like, a comment, subscribe to the show. If you're able to, leave me a rating or a review. Please do that as well, because the more of those that I have, the easier it is to get great guests. And speaking of great guests, I've got one coming up right now. Please welcome to Into the Necrosphere, for the first time ever, Mr. John Jarvis of Scour. So you say you're busy rehearsing for the Scour live stream?
That's right. It's just announced last Thursday. And of course, this is being taped in advance. But yeah, it's going to be announced coming up. And it's the trilogy stream. We're going to do all 3 EPs, the gray EP, the red EP, and the black EP. And hopefully some surprises after that. But yeah, we got a band Shock Narcotic opening up from Housecore Records also. It's another one of these super groups. It's got all kinds of killer musicians in it. It's the singer Child Bite, Dillinger Escape Plan, guitar player, I think the drummer from Black Dahlia, and the bass player from Battlecross. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's exciting. We're finally getting all in the same room and playing the black EP for the first time together, which has been really fun.
Yeah. So writing the black EP or recording it, I guess it was quite significantly different to the experience that you would have had with Gray and Red, if, you know, just based on COVID-19 and the fact that kind of we're all forced to live in isolation. Is that fair to say?
Well, not really, because we recorded the music years ago. So we've had the music recorded, and then we were just waiting for Phil's vocals, and he delivered them before that all happened. So it just so happened that we released it during, the pandemic. But really, the music was all written and recorded beforehand. So we've really stuck to the same formula with every release. Derek writes the hits, we say, and so he writes the songs, send them over to me. I record the bass. That's usually the demo process, and then of course the backbone is the drums. Once we get the drums recorded, that's when we can add everything else, in our own home studios and take our time and try to make it the best we can. So we've really had the same process for each EP.
Yeah, I was just about to say, because it's been interesting listening to the progression of the band over the course of the three EPs, and actually on tomorrow's episode that's going to come out, which will be a week after or a week previous to this one, I actually spoke about how I feel like on this EP, like as a band, you guys are really hitting your groove now. I feel like all of the songwriting is more refined. There's just kind of I don't know if the word is smoothness, but it just seems to be more cohesion in how the band operate as a unit, as opposed to Gray and Red, both of which were very cool. This is just a step up to me. So I was curious to know what was the kind of timeline or the gap in between writing those EPs based on what you just said earlier.
Well, we had released we did a Bathory cover during the Red EP sessions, and then Derek started writing the Black EP when we had Adam Jarvis in the band. So he had him in mind. So he knew he could blast a little bit faster than your average drummer or most drummers. And so he bumped up the BPMs on the songs for the Black EP, so they're a little bit faster. But he added a lot of tasty licks, I should say, and especially for the bass lines. He writes everything, so he had the bass lines are pretty straightforward for most of Scour stuff, but on the Black EP, there's a little extra tasty licks in there. So, but yeah, and really having Adam on drums and Mark from Misery Index also adding backing vocals. He's got more of a lower register, and I'm more of a middle in the middle, and Derek's more of a higher. So all three of our backing vocals together, I think, sound really cool. So that's another big step up for the Black EP.
I mean, I would say also just the riffing. It feels to me like before, and not necessarily in it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but before, where the band wore its influences quite obviously on its sleeve, I think it sounds more distinct now. It's, it's very distinctly Scour. There's like a distinct riff style to it, which I think is great. It sort of plays on the speed, which has always been a great trademark of the band, but you kind of have more of those grooves, more of the, almost, I'd say, discordant melodies that the band throw in there. But it's these very sort of subtle sleight of hands, if you know what I mean. Where does that come? Is that just from is it from the sort of adjustment in lineup? Is it just you guys playing together more and kind of getting to know each other more as musicians?
Well, I think it's really Derek having the core around him, and he knows what to expect from all of us right now. And I think in the future, that's what you kind of got to do as a band, is progress, and you can't just make the same thing over and over. I mean, some bands get away with that, but we're not AC/DC, so we and we're still a new band too, so we're still kind of forming our sound, So I think on the full length, that's what we're working on next. There's going to be even wider, broader sounds, and I think maybe even more death metal influenced. But you got to kind of mix it up. You can't just do the same song all the time. So
no.
Yeah, I think Derek's he's stepped it up for the Black EP, and we're gonna make him, push even harder for the full length.
So is it fair to say, in terms of, I guess, the creative vision of the band and the direction that the band moves into, is Derek kind of principally responsible for that? Is it something that you guys decide on collectively? Who's kind of the steer behind the band's sound?
Well, it's all Derek writing it, but yeah, it all started with Derek and I on tour, and we were it started with an idea than a sound. We kind of had ideas of how bands should be ran, how things should go on the road, just even management type stuff. And we kind of talked about it and learned the rights and wrong ways to do things on the road. And it started from that. And then he's like, well, I got these demo songs. They're more, they're a little black metal-ish, but, and he let me hear them. And I started recording the bass over them while we were on tour. And, so I think once we got to the point where we got Phil in the band, it became more of a, all right, now he knows who to write for. He knows who's singing. He knows who's on bass. He knows of the backing vocals. So yeah, it's really Derek's the main guy, but it's really when we thought about a front man, in the type of music we're playing, the demos, like, who's really into black metal? That's really not a black metal guy, and it's like Phil would be perfect, because everyone knows that follows Phil Anselmo. He would always wear black metal t-shirts and take like Satyricon out on the road with Pantera, for example. So he was the perfect fit. And then we got a couple buddies to fill it up. Jesse on drums, which we still jam in with multiple bands, and Chase, who was in Animosity and Decrepit Birth. And we toured with Decrepit Birth a few times, so we got to know them. But yeah, it was really been Derek he writes the songs, and it's really his vision.
And it's interesting you mentioned about Phil, because I've mentioned it on the podcast a few times. You know, he was a guy that was, you know, rocking the Dark Throne T-shirts and the Burzum shirts back in the 90s, you know, way before it became fashionable for anybody else to do so. And obviously he was in, I think the project was called Ibon. He was also in Christ Inversion. He was the guitarist for that. You know, there's clips floating around online of him doing Day of Suffering with Morbid Angel. He's always had like really cool extreme metal vocals. It's weird almost that it took this long for him to get, you know, into a band that has this sound, or that kind of sits in this genre. I'm sure you've told the story many times before, but how did you guys how did the relationship with Phil start? You know, how did he become involved in Scour?
Well, it started with a band I was in called Fulgora. It's Adam, myself, and a friend named Brandon Lemieux. And we had a demo, and I sent it to Housecore, and it was the drummer from Harp. I always got to give him props because he enjoyed it and sent it to Phil and said, "Hey, you got to hear this band." And then one day we got a Facebook message from Phil Anselmo's account, and my singer called me, and he's like, "Is it really Phil Anselmo?" And I didn't believe it at first. I was like, you know, this could be anybody. You know, can you imagine Phil Anselmo on his computer messaging us? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But it turned out it was really him, and I got him on the phone, and we chatted about football for a while, and he said, he's like, "I'm going to sign your band. I'm going to put out your records." And he ended up doing it. And they even let us like go on the road, do some shows with them. And
your camera has just disappeared.
Sorry, you there?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Sorry.
So you were saying so pick up the story from where you were talking to Phil on the phone.
Okay. Yeah. So got Phil on the phone, and we talked some football, and he said he was going to sign the band, and he ended up doing it. And then we ended up going on the road, doing some shows with Superjoint, and kind of hit it off from there. And I think at one point I was tour managing for Cattle Decapitation, and Derek wanted a spoken word part for the Cattle track, and the perfect like spoken word guy is Phil. He's got that deep voice.
Yeah.
So we, you know, can you ask him for us type thing. So I ended up asking Phil to be on the Cattle release, and that's how Derek and Phil kind of got together. So yeah, it all started with this band called Fulgora that he ended up signing to Housecore.
Which, by the way, I really enjoyed the Fulgora singles. The Splinter in particular, I thought was a fucking cool tune. It's kind of like, it reminded me in a weird way of like like Ken Mode if they took testosterone supplements. It's like,
yeah,
there's like there's sort of that hardcore discordance thing about it, but it sounded just a little bit more gnarly and a little bit more pissed off. Is there what's the status of the of that project? Because you said was in Fulgora. Is that on the back burner now?
But I mean, technically we're still a band. We never officially like broke up. We actually have a song we recorded at Phil's house a few years ago, and it's just we've never released it. We're waiting for a perfect time to release it and maybe do some shows around it type thing. But yeah, we're still technically a band. And he Lemieux, the main songwriter, he had a lot of recordings and demos for another full-length Fulgora release. We just all were so busy in our other projects for the last few years that it's just kind of been on the back burner. And it's kind of like, we want to be able to, if we're going to release something, we want to be able to practice and like promote it well and tour. And, you know, so it's kind of like, we got that track. We got a helmet cover we also did that we haven't released. So we could put out a single if we wanted to, you know, but I think with a right like festival offer came, we'd get back together, you know, and hash it out. But that, yeah, it's really probably honestly the best band I've ever been in. It's just relentless and pissed off, and technically riff wise, it's just really difficult to do, but fun at the same time.
Yeah.
So
I was about to say what I liked about Splinter is you had that technicality in the riffing. There was a real kind of seriously mean, pissed off groove, and then kind of towards the end of the track, you've got this real just hint of melody that comes into the breakdown, and everything just hung together so well. I when I was looking for Fulgora tracks, I was like, I couldn't believe that there was only, from what I could find, like I think 2 singles that you guys put out.
we did the 2 singles, and then Housecore, pretty much we added those 2 together and did another song, Meridian it was called, and released that as the Stratagem EP. So Housecore put up, and that's pretty much like a compilation. And yeah, that's all we've done. And we had, like I said, we had some other tracks, and we had written a lot, and it really stemmed from I lived really close to the guitar player, and I would go to his house a couple times a week, and we really would work hard on it. But yeah, it's I really like to get that project back going at some point, because it's fun, and it's just really ripping material.
I thought you were about to say you used to go to his house once a week, watch the news, get angry, and start writing music.
Oh no. Actually, we would just watch films. He's a really big film buff, and he would try to, I would call them movies. He said, they're not movies, they're films. He's like real serious about it and shit.
He's somebody that says, instead of watching a movie, you're going to be screening a movie.
Well, yeah.
I've gotten into that habit too. I've got a fucking disgustingly good home theater set. I mean, and I'm not even going to be humble about it. I spent an extraordinary amount of money and poured a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into my home theater system. But I drive my girlfriend nuts, because I'm like, all right, I'll go to the 4K Blu-ray rack. What movie are we going to screen this evening?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, if you're going to spend a lot of time watching even the news or something. But yeah, I'm the same way. I got 4K TV with my new Xbox Series X. I got to have the up-to-date technology at all times, because I enjoy watching football, like, for example, and watching it in 4K on a big screen. There's just nothing like it, man. It's like you're there.
You're a Baltimore Ravens fan, are you not?
That's true, and that's only because, well, when I grew up, I grew up in St. Louis, so I was a St. Louis Cardinals football fan.
Yeah.
But when they left town, it was just like, we were pretty pissed off. It wasn't like, I'm going to follow my team wherever they go. It was like, see you later. Yeah. So I had needed a new team, and I became a Dolphins fan because I played a lot of Madden football. I really liked Dan Marino. So I was just like, and you had to have a team, like, who's your favorite team? And I was like, well, I guess the Dolphins. So then we finally got the St. Louis Rams. And I was a big Rams fan, even when we had Tony Banks and we sucked, and I would go to the games. But I'd buy tickets in advance because, for example, I bought some 49ers tickets because it was going to be Steve Young and Jerry Rice. And it was like week 10 or something. And I'd buy them in advance. By the time it was week 10, they were both injured, and it was Jim Drunkenmiller, quarterback. I'll never forget it. But I followed the team when they were terrible, and then they got good, then they got really good. Yeah. And then they were the best show on turf. Then I couldn't go to the games anymore because all the rich people in town had to be at the games. Yeah. And I'll never forget, my boss once was like, are you going to the playoff game this weekend? I know you're such a big fan. And I was like, no, I can't go to the game. And you want to know why? Because you're going to the game. That's why. Because you don't like football. And she kind of felt bad for me, but it was the truth. So It got to the point where I couldn't even go see my own team because it was, $100 tickets that I couldn't afford anymore. But yeah, then the Rams leave town. So then I hate them again. And I moved to Baltimore, lived in Baltimore for 7 years. So I had to make a choice at one point. Am I going to be a Redskins fan or the football team's fan, or am I going to be a Ravens fan? And I played a lot of Madden football, and then I went to some preseason games and saw Lamar Jackson, and I was just like, wow, this guy is incredible. I mean, he was, even in preseason before he was starting on the team, he was the best player on the field. There was just no doubt about it. And so I was like, all right, I'm a Ravens guy. And then I went to some Ravens playoff games, and they're luckily in the playoffs right now.
I was about to say, second in the AFC North. They beat New York Giants a couple of nights ago.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to play them right now if I was some other team, because they're looking good.
Did you ever play any sports when you were growing up?
Yeah, I was a baseball player. I was a pitcher, third base, and Yeah, never. My parents or my mom wouldn't let me play football, even though I wanted to. I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have been very good anyway. I wasn't very good at baseball either. But yeah, I enjoyed playing Corey League baseball as a kid, and that's really my favorite sport.
Yeah. Are you into combat sports or anything like that?
No, I mean I was a boxing fan. I never really got into MMA or any of that. I do enjoy professional wrestling, though. You know, the WWE.
Same. Yeah, I drive people nuts about it as well. I think on the podcast because whenever I've got a guest on that's into it, then I can while away at least 2 hours on that. I was going to ask you if you're a pro wrestling fan. Obviously, you saw the sad news about Brody Lee.
Yeah.
Have you been watching AEW? What are your thoughts on them as a promotion?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to watch because it's you got the Tony Schiavone, old JR on
Yeah.
commentary. So yeah, it's great. And his buddy Eric Rowan's a friend, and when they would come through town, Eric Rowan would put me on the guest list to go. Some of the best seats I've ever had at live events has been because of him. He puts me
Oh,
on the
that's
guest list.
fucking that's
He's a
awesome.
metalhead. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
as was Brody Lee, because I know there was
right.
that photo doing the rounds while he was still Luke Harper in WWE, where he had the Hatebreed T-shirt on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, they're old tag team, but yeah, it's terrible news. But yeah, the AEW, more power to them. I mean, hope they keep it up, and I'm sure
Yeah.
they will because they seem to be going pretty well. And
My
it's kind
my
of more of a
fear for
throwback.
them, my fear for them always was that they were going to go the TNA Impact route, where TNA just became more and more desperate for ratings, and so they would do these grabs where they do something just completely fucking stupid, like
Yeah.
Dixie Carter sleeps with the entire roster or some dumb shit like that, and then
Right.
it just devalued everything. But I think because Tony Khan kind of grew up on ECW and on all the shit that I liked, I feel like he's been quite careful in how he's managed that, and whoever else they have booking and things like that, they've been very careful, and I think very effective in avoiding a lot of those pitfalls. And so far, I mean, I think they're great. I mean, I had given up on I grew up being so obsessed with wrestling that my university dissertation when I got my degree was on the use of integrated marketing communication in the WWE or WWF at the time. And then, the Attitude Era ended, and my patience started getting stretched when we went into the Ruthless Aggression era. And then we went into the PG era, and it got to a point where I was like, I can't watch this fucking bullshit any longer. It just killed my love for it altogether. I still watch stuff on the WWE network, anything pre 2001, but I just couldn't watch anything else. And then when AEW came back on, it was actually Chris Jericho being part of it that got me into it at first. I watched those promos that he did of himself sitting in the fucking hot tub at home and it's calling himself Le Champion, drinking a little bit of the bubbly. And I was like, okay, this is brilliant. Let's check out the rest of it. And I loved it. I've watched Dynamite pretty religiously ever since it started airing, and I think it's such a great show. I think it captures some of that unpredictability and that wildness of the 90s, but it's kind of brought the product relatively up to date. There's a couple of things that I wish they would change, but for the most part, I feel like they're on the right track.
Yeah, I agree. And if they came to town, I'd check it out. And that's what I think would be the next step for them. Is when it's possible to take it around the country, and it'll just grow from there. And I think maybe having it in the smaller, they've been forced to do, it maybe hasn't hurt them, because you don't want to see an empty stadium, when you start out, so maybe it's done them some good being in the small, where, not giant stadiums, but I think that at some point they'll be able to fill giant stadiums, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think in a way, they sort of have the same benefit that some musicians have now, which is they've got like a captive audience. Because they beat Raw, I think 2 weeks ago for the first time. They beat Raw in the ratings, and obviously they're not direct competitors because Raw is on a Monday night and Dynamite is on Wednesday. But I mean, for them to draw more than WWE Raw is a fucking big deal.
Oh yeah, of course. And they've been beating NXT almost every week too.
Yeah.
So good for them.
Yeah.
Good for always root for the underdog.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, so in the Attitude Era, which I'm going to assume you were probably as religious a viewer as I was, were you a Nitro guy? Were you a Raw guy? Where did your allegiances lie?
Strictly Nitro at that time.
Yeah.
And and it was really when they always talk about when everyone clicked over to see if Cactus Jack was the champion. I did it too. I was like, oh, wow, Cactus Jack, I remember him, And I think it was Tony Schiavone that said it. It was like, there's their champion. I'm like, oh wow, interesting. But I was all Nitro, Goldberg, and the NWO, and
the thing about Nitro that I loved so much, and there was particularly around kind of 1996, right around the time that, in fact, actually not even right around. You can pinpoint that moment that Hulk Hogan gave his very famous Nitro promo where he had joined the NWO, and he wasn't completely in the new outfit yet, but he just had black spandex on, and he's insulting the fans, and there's people crying in the audience, and Mean Gene is like, what do you have to say, Hogan, to your friends, to the people that looked up to you? And he's like, but the fans, after I try to lead their kids down the right path, had the gall to boo Hulk Hogan so the fans could stick it, brother. And anyway, right around there, there was that period where Nitro used to feel so unpredictable, so exciting. I really, like, until AEW came back, I really missed that, where it feels like it's just, maybe it was the open air, maybe it was the setting, but it just felt like anything could happen at any given time.
Right. Like the Rodman stuff, and who was it? The guy from Scary Movie or Scream.
David Arquette. What was he? I was just about to say David Arquette.
He became the champion. It got ridiculous. Once Vince Russo kind of took over, but that's what I was into back then. We'd get together and watch it every Monday night, me and my friends.
Were you a ECW guy at all?
No, for some reason I guess where I lived, it wasn't available on cable, or I don't know what it was, but I was aware of it, but it was just hard to get access to it. I didn't have the internet back then,
Yeah, that's the thing too, man. Like, I mean, I think you're around about the same age as I am. I don't think kids today appreciate exactly what they have at their disposal. I mean, I remember what a big deal it was for us to order ECW tapes from, I grew up in South Africa, so, living where we were, it was the same with music too, and I've spoken about that a lot on the show, but ordering or getting a hold of an ECW pay-per-view on video was like the biggest thing you could imagine. Like, I remember watching, I think it was Hardcore Heaven, and just being so blown away because it's like so much more risque than anything you saw on WCW, WWE. You had women very scantily clad. You had, people like Bubba Ray, was cutting these promos where he was dropping bombs that in a million years you could not get away with saying on television now. I mean, why? How the cancel mob hasn't come for him yet, I don't know. But I mean, a lot of it was just pure gold.
Yeah, I mean, you knew Jack. He was crazy, man, like legitimately crazy.
Did you watch that Vice Dark Side of the Ring Jack special? How fucking good was that?
It's great. And I mean, they're already working on the third season, so I'm pumped to watch that. And I think it's finally on like Hulu, or where did I see it recently? I don't know. I've been watching it straight from my app on my phone, So now that I think it's streaming on Hulu now or something, so I'll be excited to see the third season of that.
Yeah. I watched all of them too, but I will definitely say I think the New Jack one was the best, just purely because the guy is fucking insane.
Right, right. That guy's nuts.
The story that he told where he had that scaffold match with a guy, and he had decided to get him back.
He's really gonna kill him. Yeah,
I was about to say he's throwing him off a scaffold and then going, "I hope you die." Right before he does it. It's like, fucking hell. Yeah, and the way he's so nonchalant about it when he says it as well, it's fucking nuts.
Yeah, but, he's just cocaine out of his mind. He was always like, yeah, dude, he was always smoking crack, and it was just crazy guy.
Nuts. I mean, those the thing is, again, complete magic. Those old promos that he did when he was, I can't remember what the Smoky Mountain, yeah, where he was calling people honkies and shit. It's
right. OJ, what do you say, OJ? 2 more cars. He's like, my brother OJ, way to go, man.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, fuck, dude. I mean, and the thing is, those were the great days when people still got properly, like, they were so invested in it, and they would get so pissed off and so upset. It's just, I love it. Like, anytime you watch an old Ric Flair promo from NWA, you know, like the 1986, 1987, I mean, aside from how great he is to be able to improvise at the rate that he's doing and like say the stuff that he's saying and just come up with shit on the fly, the way that people would get into it was just, it was ridiculous to me. You know, you'd have people so angry at him afterwards that apparently they would wait for him in the parking lot and want to kill him and, you know, hit him with bottles and shit.
Yeah, because he basically came to town and said, I'm going to steal all your women. And, you know, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
He was the greatest, in my opinion.
I completely agree. I think in terms of promo work, there's not anybody that can touch him. What that guy did, particularly in the mid '80s, like mid '80s, I really liked his first run with the WWF as well. That feud that he had with Randy Macho Man Savage, where he and Mr. Perfect had supposedly got. Yeah, I was about to say where they had the photos of Elizabeth that they were going to show the world. I mean, that was fucking brilliant.
I remember that. Yeah, that's being a kid. I was just like, wow, you know, because back then Elizabeth, she was the top, you know, #1 lady. And I think, it's photoshopped, you know, it's Ric Flair's face next to Elizabeth.
Yeah. And the worst thing it was how bad it was. Like, you know, Flair's like looking off in the distance and then he's selling it like it's completely legit.
Just hilarious.
The best way to me was how he ended it, where I remember there was an interview with Mean Gene on Saturday Night Main Event. And he's going on about how Randy cheated to win the belt. And then he said, you know, even though, you know, he'd beat Randy to a pulp and Randy was upstairs nursing his knee, at midnight, there was a knock at the door and it was Elizabeth yelling, please, I've got to ride Space Mountain one more time.
just pure gold.
Yeah. Amazing. Speaking of people that can steal your girl, how the fuck did the Jason Momoa thing come about on the Black EP? Because I was blown away by that. I mean, you know, like, I think of aside from Tom Hardy, he's probably the guy that ladies who I'm friends with on Facebook posts most about. And then you think to yourself, okay, maybe you can imagine him in like a Five Finger Death Punch kind of, or like a celebrity of that status in a Five Finger Death Punch type band or something like that. But to be in something as extreme as Scour was like, this is nuts to me.
Right. Well, that's the thing. He's into the heavy music, man. And he came out to Slayer's final tour, to the final show, actually, in LA, and hung out backstage with Phil and the Illegals. And Derek hit it off with them, and they exchanged phone numbers. And it just came down to, once Phil sends his vocals to us, Derek and I will figure out where to put our backing vocals in. And we make notes, and we'll say, hey, we got to do this here and this there. And then we match notes, and we knew at the end of Doom we needed a big scream. And sometimes Derek's like, oh, the stream will be perfect for you. Or he'll say, I'm going to take this one. But on this one, we're like, well, let's get a guest. Let's get a guest vocalist. And I was like, well, why don't you ask your buddy Aquaman, you know, see what because I heard he's taking vocal lessons from the guy from Archspire. And obviously he's got that Khal Drago scream on him. And Derek texted him, and he immediately was all about it because he's a big Phil fan and big Pantera fan. So we sent him the track. He said, I'll do it. And he actually had to sing through a gate. He sent us video of it where he just had someone put a microphone, because it's the beginning of the pandemic, and the microphone through a gate, and he's just screaming, "One epic excuse," into the, you know, through outside into a microphone through a gate. So he went out of his way to get it done, and he promoted it well for us too. So we're really excited about it.
I was about to say, there feels to me like there's a lot more buzz around this record as well than there was around the first two. The first, you know, Grey was kind of, at least for me, and it might be because I don't read as much music news as I probably should, but it flew under the radar a little bit more than Red kind of stepped it up. But there seems to be real kind of noise around this new, very positive noise around this new EP. Is that down to, you think, signing with Nuclear Blast? What do you think is kind of behind that?
Yeah, it's really been the team of Housecore, Nuclear Blast working together, and really Derek and I working with the management of Nuclear Blast has been a lot of help. And it's kind of like when we all say, all right, we're putting this news out next Thursday at noon, well, it's all shared at the same time. It kind of has more of an impact than just one guy shares it at noon, one guy shares it at 3:00, so it's kind of having us all on the same page has really helped. And maybe just the fact that people really don't have much else to do than check out some new music. I know I'm checking out more music than ever nowadays. So
musically, black metal hasn't. You Scour, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but Scour is like the first black metal band that you've been in. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So how did you kind of make that move in? And also, I guess the thing that I'm very impressed by is how natural it sounds. It like, I had a conversation once with a friend of mine who's a tattoo artist named Lautreamont, and it's actually on one of my podcasts. We were talking about him going to see two particular bands, and we walked out of there, and he said, the difference between the two was the one band plays black metal, the other band is black metal. And I kind of feel like you sort of fit in the latter camp, which is a huge compliment. But where did that come from? How did you guys or how did you at least make that natural transition into, Satan's music?
Well, it's really when I'm in so many bands that for me, they all have to be different or it's just a waste of time. I'm not going to start a new band tomorrow that sounds like Scour, and I'm not going to start a band tomorrow that sounds like Agoraphobic Nosebleed or Fulgora. It's like for me, it's just because I guess I'm so deep into the type of music, they're all in different subgenres. But I think, the average non-metal listener would think it's all noise and it's all heavy metal, but really it's different. Scour's way different than Agoraphobic Nosebleed or Fulgora. And so it's really just mixing it up for me was what was exciting, and doing something new. And I'm not going to say I'm some old school black metal even fan. I like black metal, and I've liked with Derek. Derek's really the mastermind, and he'll say, check this band out, you'll like this. So because I'm more of a, I guess, I don't know, post-hardcore, I guess would be my favorite, or I can even go 80s thrash metal. That's my deep subject. That's what I like to listen to. But it's nice just to mix it up. And I think if you're a musician, that's what you should do, is just jam with other dudes and try different styles of music. Because if you just do one thing, and there's people that just, and that's advice I've been given, just stick with one band and put all your energy into that. And it's like, I can't do it. I can't just do the same thing. I have to mix it up. I played in a cover band even before once, where we did 4-hour sets. It was 50 songs. So we do 25 songs, take a break, and do 25 more songs. But I loved every one of the songs. It was like from Lynyrd Skynyrd to The Doors to, we'd even do like a little 90s set where we'd do like Silverchair and Helmet and Deftones and Rage Against the Machine. But it was just fun, So I think my advice would be in as many bands and different types of bands as you can, because that's just going to make you a better musician overall.
Yeah. So if we kind of take stock of which projects you're in right now that are actually active and running. I mean, I know there's Nest.
Right.
You've got your Sepultura cover band, Clenched Fist. What else is there on your plate right now? Because if you go through your list on Metal Archive, it looks like you go to sleep at 3 a.m. and you wake up at 4 ready for band practice.
Right. It's a lot. I got my solo project, Colton Wong City, which is a baseball themed band. I got let's see, the Booze Hounds, which recently released our 99 bottles of beer track that had over 100 musicians on it.
Yeah.
So, and that's our punk band. So we like to drink Budweiser, you know, and play punk music. And so yeah, I got that. Got Agoraphobic still going. Scott's writing a record. Let's see. I know I'm missing. And like you mentioned, Nest. We practice a lot. We put out a couple records last year. We're playing the Full Terror Assault Fest coming up, so we're excited about that. And I don't know. What else do I got going on? There's so many bands. I've been doing a lot of these COVID cover type things where someone will just have me sing. Like I did a Helmet cover recently. I did a guest for a band called Aura Surreal. That's not even released or announced yet. I did a Deftones cover recently. It's just try to stay active, you know. And I want to get that Sepultura show. You know, I want to be able to do shows again, you know. And playing the Sepultura covers is always fun because we could just piece together wherever I'm at. We could pretty much, if I'm in LA, we could find a band to put it together.
Yeah.
And when I'm in Baltimore, there's a Baltimore, we call it the East Coast Fist. And then the original's based here in St. Louis. So it's, you know, it got a lot going on, but you know, that's the way I like it. I like to stay busy.
What originally kind of took you down the path towards music and towards becoming a musician? Because I would assume that's kind of your full-time gig, being a musician, right?
Oh yeah, that's all I do. And if I could take it back to MTV, man, I got to really say that when I was like 2 or 3 years old, watching Def Leppard videos and Ozzy Osbourne, and that's where my love of heavy metal came from. And when I turned, I guess about 10 years old, Metallica, the One video came out.
Yeah.
And that just blew my mind, you know, and that's when my cousin said, well, you got to check this out, and gave me Master of Puppets. And then after I came back saying, oh my God, this is even better, he's like, check out Ride the Lightning, you know, and that's, you know, from there. And then it just came to the point where I would be giving my stuff down to Adam, my younger cousin. And then at certain point, he would come back and say, there's bands heavier than Slayer out there. You're not going to believe it. And then he's like, here's Cannibal Corpse. And I'm like, oh, this is getting crazy, you know? But yeah, he's kind of one that took it to the real extreme, and he would start turning me on to bands, you know? So it was a nice back and forth. And it started from MTV and having family that was into good music. And then my dad always played good music when I was a kid. And my uncle, which is Adam's father, he was a drummer in a great country rock band, and they would play around town. And every once in a while, he'd let us act like roadies, you know, and help them load into the bar. And, you know, they would play the hometown homecomings, you know, so we'd be like, oh, you know, I've played those drums before, you know, type thing. And when they would take breaks, us kids would get up there and play around and hit them, you know, and stuff. And that's the first time he taught me my first chord, you know. But so, yeah, it's really came from MTV and just having a cool family that's into good music.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess what was was there any sort of moment in your life where, as a musician, you kind of it sort of clicked for you, and you said, okay, I'm going to make this my career. This is how I'm going to make my living.
Right. Well, it was really when Phil called and said, hey, I want to put your records out. And I had made a decision. I was like, and not a lot of people thought it was a good idea, but I'm like, I'm just going to work on music. And if I get a job, it's going to have to be involving music. So it's really all I care about, you know? And so I worked for Housecore doing social media for a while. And I worked at a bar called the Auto Bar in Baltimore. And they had a lot of great metal shows come through there. And so, you know, I just said, I'm going to put my energy into arts and music, and no more waiting tables or fucking working for anyone else. You know, I just had to say, even if I struggle, I'm just going to keep doing it. And it's been really tough. I ain't going to act like I'm rich. There were some really tough months, you know, along the way, but at least when I wake up in the morning, I'm not miserable, man. I wake up and I say, I'll work on some Scour today, you know, and it's fun. I love. I was just telling Derek the other day, I was like, man, playing these Scour songs again, it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any better.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, I mean, how is the last 9 months, and I consciously avoided, because I'd asked it on many podcast episodes, and even I got to a point where it's like, okay, fuck this. I can't ask people anymore about coronavirus, but how has your life changed over the last kind of 9 months, in terms of how you spend your days, in terms of, how I guess your approach to every day, how has the last 9 months impacted that?
Well, it's really, I'm just doing more activities outdoors. If I'd go on a date to the bowling alley, for example, I can't do that right now. So now we go roller skating outside, or shooting some hoops outside, and if you could find a place that didn't take the hoops down. So
Yeah.
It's like, even when you're trying to do stuff outside, they're trying to close down that too. It's gotten out of control. But for me, luckily, like we mentioned, we got nice home theaters, and there's plenty of entertainment, and with my different bands and recording this and that in my own house, it really hasn't affected me, honestly, that much. And I've had relatives that have gotten COVID-19, and luckily they're doing great right now. They lived through it. And so I haven't really had any devastating news from it yet. I wouldn't be shocked, over the next few months, someone, you never know. But it's really, I just try to, if I go to the store, I buy more stuff so I don't have to go again next week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I do little things like that, but overall it's made me miss things, and maybe that I took for granted in the past, and like, for example, just going to a concert, it's something I really miss.
Dude, I spoke to somebody about this a few episodes ago, and I said one thing that I'd noticed over the last couple of years was how much less intense people were at shows than they used to be. Like, I remember seeing Slayer back in 2002, and the crowd lost it to such a point when that band came on stage. You couldn't hear them play the first two songs. It was just fucking violence from start to finish. And then I went to, I saw them quite a few times in the interim, but I went to the final show that they played here in Wembley, and there were a couple of people headbanging. There was a little bit of a pit, but nothing like I would have expected a band of that stature playing potentially their fight. And it seems like Tom Araya is definitely, he's done with it.
I think it's over.
Oh yeah, no, he's 100% done with it. I think you'd sooner see him in a fucking country band than you'd see him in Slayer again. But a band of that stature playing, playing their last ever show in London, I would not have. I would have expected a far more energetic response than I got. And I think part of it is down to the fact that people don't have to part money for music anymore. Everything is available to them now. That kind of symbolic investment of you handing over money that you've worked for to buy a CD or buy a piece of merchandise. I mean, merchandise is different, but buy the privilege or the right to listen to the music. It's not there any longer, and so therefore the value of the music is not as much in your mind as it maybe was to guys like you and I. Because I think you and I, judging by the background that I'm looking at, I think you and I are probably quite similar in that. I mean, I fucking lived for music when I was a kid. Like my whole personality, my way of approaching life was defined by the music that I listened to. So, when I went to a show, and the first couple of bands that I saw, I fucking lost it, because it's like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. I feel like that having been taken away from people in coronavirus, I almost feel like it's going to raise the value of it a little bit again. And my prediction would be, I think once shows come back, I think we can expect to see hopefully a return to some of that craziness from the 80s and the 90s, because I miss that. It started to get more boring for me to go. Even though I don't want to be in the middle of the pit anymore, but it started to lose a bit of the joy of being there. I love that unpredictability and that craziness that you get at shows.
And I remember those feelings back then. And I mean, I remember going to Slayer shows in the 90s, and you would have a bit of fear. Like, you're like,
Yeah.
am I gonna break an arm or a leg?
Yeah.
If I get caught in this pit, what's gonna happen? Type thing. And I mean, I remember legitimately being scared to go to a Cannibal Corpse concert when I was in the early 90s, and I was a teenager. I was like, man, I don't know if I could handle that crowd. You know, I'm gonna have to be in the back, you know, watch it. And it's funny because I went on tour with Cannibal Corpse once. I was a merch guy. And every night, someone would get pushed out on a stretcher. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, I would watch them coming in. I'd think, who's it going to be tonight? One of these kids are going out. They don't realize it.
Yeah.
But one of these kids are going out on a stretcher tonight. So yeah, there's still some unpredictability out there. If you know, but I know what you mean. It used to be a lot more intense, and I think you're right. Once we get to go back to shows, I'll be in the pit. You know, I'm 41 years old, but I'll be in there because I miss it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I remember the first time that I saw Biohazard play. It was back before Evan lost his mind. So this was like 2002. It was on a show called the East Pack Resistance Tour, and it had a great lineup. I mean, if you're into hardcore, it was awesome. It had, you know, a couple of smaller bands, and then it had Stamping Ground, which is a local band, which is fucking brilliant. Hatebreed, Agnostic Front, and when Agnostic Front had finished playing, I said to my friend, "Geez, man, I reckon the audience is spent. They don't have any more energy for Biohazard." Biohazard came on, and the entire floor of that venue looked like a tumble dryer, and I counted at least 7 people being taken out by paramedics.
Right.
It was the most fucking unhinged, violent shit that I had ever seen in my entire life. And again, I as much as I don't want people to get hurt, I miss that intensity.
Well, I do got a quick Biohazard story. I almost died in a Biohazard pit. It was Machine Head, Biohazard, Slayer, and it was Divine Intervention tour. And I went with my buddy, who's now my cousin, who married my cousin, and I was like, I'm going up front, you know, for see Biohazard. I was really there more for Biohazard than Slayer because I was just a huge fan of Urban Discipline. And I went up front and center, and once they started, I was getting crushed. Like, the crowd just like rushed right at the front. And I'm just getting, I remember with every bit, just to get a second of breath, every bit of energy I had. And I was like, I might be crushed to death. This is insane. And I just remember I'm fighting for my life at this point. And I was like, all right, maybe I'm not ready for the Biohazard pit.
So I had a similar experience watching Slayer. So on the tour where they did Rain in Blood as an encore, the first time they did it, I believe, was here in the UK, and they didn't tell anybody that they were going to do it. I was right in front, and it was already pretty hairy. You know, you get bumped all the time from the back, and then, you know, they finished the first part of the set, and then they came back on, and they started doing Angel of Death, and everyone was kind of confused, going, are they finished? Because that's normally the track that they finish off every show with. And then they just went from Angel of Death into Post-Mortem into everything else, and that crowd just started fucking losing it. It's like, because they realized what was happening. And right. I swear, like, by the time we got to like Altars of Sacrifice, it was literally like your tongue was hanging out the side of your face because you're being crushed up against the barrier so much. But my favorite memory from that show was during Altars of Sacrifice. I had Jeff Hanneman standing right above me, and right at the bit where Tom is like yelling, "Enter to the realms of Satan." I'm like yelling it along like some fucking fan geeked out kid. And right. Jeff is like looking down at me, just smiling and like nodding his head.
Right.
Fucking amazing. Just incredible. Absolutely incredible. But again, like I said, you know, I really hope that when things come back, that passion comes out, because it adds to shows. The last time I experienced that level of passion at a show actually wasn't even really a particularly heavy band. It was Rammstein. I saw Rammstein 2 years ago on that insane show where they like took over an entire football stadium, and you know, you literally could see the stage set when you were walking towards the stadium. Everything was bigger than the stadium. I mean, people lost it on that, but you know, beyond that, it's been rare that I've seen that level of just sort of release that you got from those shows in the 90s and the early 2000s. On a side note, by the way, Urban Discipline is a fucking beast of an album to this day.
It still holds up.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was a great tour to see them on as well, because I mean, you would have kind of caught Biohazard right in their prime.
Right.
And it was also on that tour, I think, that Slayer used to do Witching Hour with Rob Flynn at the end of every show, which is just fucking, that cover they do together is brilliant.
And I'm going to go ahead and say it. That's Machine Head in their prime too. You know, Burn My Eyes just came out, and I really love Divine Intervention. So I know a lot of Slayer fans that, you know, they're too old school for that record, but man, that record still holds up too.
I think one of the most underrated tracks in the Slayer discography by no small stretch, Killing Fields. I think it's one of the meanest sounding songs I've ever heard in my life.
That's a cool intro to an album. And yeah, they of course played that during that tour, and that's Paul Bostaff on drums. You know,
yeah,
he's good play, man.
So I wanted to ask you one more question, just about, you know, you as a musician. Obviously, you've done a lot of different things. What do you feel as a musician are the stones that are still left unturned? You know, have you got anything in mind that you want to achieve, or any style that you want to explore? Anything in particular that I guess is kind of like a burning desire for you to get done?
Well, I mean, I've always had goals, and you know, I've pretty much gotten taken care of most of those goals. But there's really small things I'd like to get done. Like, you know, I've never been in Guitar World, for example. You know, it'd be cool to be in Guitar World, you know, or like a Rolling Stone or something. But, you know, I'm really happy with what I've accomplished already. And you got to have more goals after you accomplish your goals. You got to set new ones. And so, you know, I got a couple that, you know, I would like to do. But honestly, you know, I've been just really proud and just happy with what I've already done, you know. And the Black EP is another example of just like, sometimes you got to pinch yourself, like, wow, I can't believe I'm on a record with Aquaman and Phil from Pantera. Like, this is crazy. And I can't believe I'm singing a song with Phil, you know. It's, you know, it's just all just mind blowing to me sometimes. And I'm just grateful for being able to do it. You know, I'm grateful I could walk down the street, you know, that my legs work, you know, and my arms work, you know. I'm just happy to be able to be healthy at my age, you know. So jamming with the Scour Boys is just, for me, it's the greatest thing. And really excited for the stream. And it's, you know, it's been over a year since we've done a show, so we're really, what we need to do is get back to playing shows, you know. And once the rest of the world's ready, Scour Boys will be ready. So,
dude, I think that's the perfect time to wrap it up. There's still a bunch of stuff I could have asked you about, but I think that's the high note. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a blast having you on, and I hopefully at some point down the road we're going to catch up with each other again.
Right on. Cheers, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. Take care of yourself.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much to John for coming on the show. Like I said, great time catching up with him. And if you haven't checked it out yet, I did review the EP last week, but the new Scour EP, Black, is a fucking ripping good time. You just heard a song called Doom off of that record. And again, I will post the link to their Bandcamp on the description of this podcast. If you go there and you buy yourself a t-shirt or you buy yourself some music and they ask you who sent you, you just let them know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere. And once again, I just want to say thank you very much to everybody for the just astounding level of support that the podcast has been getting of late. Loads more subscribers, a bunch of people posting about the show on social media, and it's fucking awesome to see it. It's more than in a million years I would ever have expected. So thank you very much if you've done that. And if you've and I mean, like I said at the end of the year, if you've given me any of your time, I know that time is precious, and I thoroughly appreciate it. So thank you very, very much. I hope I have made it worth your while, and I hope this episode has been worth your while so far, because we're just getting warmed up. And speaking of getting warmed up, let's talk about some new music. Lautreamont out of Russia have put out a record called The Cult of Grinning Martyrs. They're a three-piece. This record was released on December the 7th by Hymns of Apocalypse. It is the follow-up to Silence of the Deceased that came out back in 2018. That is not really a record that I had spent all that much time with, so this band was relatively new to me. I discovered them on the Always Badass Black Metal Promotions channel. And as I have said many times before, that, in my view, is the greatest source of new music that you can possibly find on the internets. So whoever runs the channel, well done. You have brought me unbelievable amounts of joy. This record itself was a joy. For those that haven't heard it, I can best describe it as thickly atmospheric black metal with kind of death metal hints. It reminds me a little bit of some of the really great modern black metal bands that I've been talking about recently. So Selps, Versio Humanitatis, Outer. There's a little bit of the kind of Death Spell Omega discordance on here as well. I mean, in terms of the sort of, I guess, overall presentation, it oscillates between these short, sharp, and focused blasts, and then these slow, very methodical, and very purposeful dirges. That's kind of all wrapped together by a vocalist that doesn't sound all that unlike the old goat from Incantation, but all of it comes together really, really well. And what I really like about Lautreamont is that they add a little bit of their own flair to things as well. Whether it's the odd kind of burst of keyboard, or a melody that's just a little different to what you would normally hear. These guys just do a fantastic job. This is a record that consists of 7 tracks. It's expertly written, expertly performed, really well produced. Frankly speaking, I think Lautreamont is probably the most impressive band I've heard out of Russia to date. And if I'm missing anything, or if I'm missing any major names, then please do let me know in the comments, or drop me a line and let me know who I need to check out. But I was thoroughly impressed by this. Here is a track off of The Cult of Grinning Martyrs. The song is called Brotherhood of Suffering. Brotherhood of Suffering by Lautreamont off Cult of Grinning Martyrs. Fantastic record and absolutely worth you checking out. Another record that you might want to add to the old rotation is the new Nårdegaist. It is their second record, the sequel to 2018's Geimalt. And where Geimalt was a rather easily pronounceable album title, this one is not. I'm going to take my best stab at it, but I believe it's pronounced Heimangangsringini. I know that I probably butchered it, but either way, what they don't do, these Nårdegaist boys, is butcher the blueprint of good old-fashioned Swedish black metal. This reminds me an awful lot of, kind of second wave Swedish black metal with a little bit of kind of Viking and folk influences thrown in. But these guys do it very well across these 7 tracks on the record. Pause. I don't understand why so many bands are recording 7-track albums at the moment. I don't know whether it's intentional, whether it's just coincidental, but anyway, just a side observation. But this is a record with really big riffs, very sparingly used blasts, a really cool throaty vocal performance that sounds like the singer swallowed half, or at least half, of his flame-spitting attempts on stage. And like I said, I mean, didn't impress me quite as much as Lautreamont, but if you're into this kind of music, you definitely would do well to give Nårdegaist a listen. You will see what I mean in a second. This is a track off the new record. It's called, I believe, One Muss Falle. That was Nårdegaist with a track called One Must Follow off of a record called Heimrangungsringingini. And if you watch this on YouTube, and I mean this with all due respect, I think you would have probably thought that you saw a typo on the screen when that song came up. But again, I'll post a link in the description to the podcast to make it a little bit easier to find these guys. Anyway, let's now talk about some news. And the first thing that is catching my eye on Metal Storm is the second single that has been dropped off of the new Ruins of Beverast album. It's called Anchorus in Furs. Like it says here, the new track by the Ruins of Beverast is now streaming, taken from the upcoming full-length album entitled The Tool Grimoires, which is set for release on the 5th of February through Van Records. I am going to have to come out and say it. Both of the Ruins of Beverast songs that have come out so far has probably done more to lower my expectations for this album than it has done to spark my anticipation. And you guys know how strongly I feel about this band. I happen to know a couple of folks that have actually heard the new album, and they say it's really, really good. There's a few things that I don't like about the songs I've heard so far. Firstly, I don't like the production. I feel like it sounds very, very flat and like it was done on a computer. It sounds really digital. I don't know how else to describe it, but there's just something about it that I don't like. It sounds sterile, and it lacks the punch that Exuvia had. And then another comparison to Exuvia, it seems to have, on both the songs that they've put out so far, there seems to be these moments of kind of almost happiness. I mean, I don't think that major chords belong on a Ruins of Beverast record, period. But yeah, there seems to be these kind of cheerful bits on both songs, and I just don't like it. Now, I could be unfair, and and it probably is unfair of me to compare this new record to Exuvia, but I will withhold my judgment for now. Last year the repeating theme was that a lot of big bands who I'd been looking forward to brought out records that were, pretty disappointing. I hope that's not going to be the case this year, but I guess time will tell. Culted stream official video for the new single. Blackened Doom Collective, Culted, will be releasing their brand new full-length album, Naus, on February 26th, 2021. The 5-piece from Canada is now premiering an official music video for the new single called Blackbird. I think this is coming out on Season of Mist. Culted have always been a band that, for me, have the makings of something incredible, and they just never have quite seemed to get it all together. And frankly, I listened to Blackbird right before I did this, actually, and I am my opinion has not shifted. I still think that it sounds. It's got these moments where you go, yes, this sounds fucking badass, and then it's got just long sections where you go, what the fuck are they doing here? So let's see what the rest of the record sounds like. But yeah, that's my view on that. Let's move on. And as we're moving on, I know actually what I'm going to be talking about next, because there was a track that I'd listened to that I wanted to bring to your attention, also just to kind of balance out me being a fucking negative old granddad about the two previous news bits. But Fuck the Facts dropped new video. I've not really ever listened to Fuck the Facts all that much, partly because I think it's a stupid name for a band. But anyway, I think this new single absolutely fucking rips. The single is called Dropping Like Flies. Apparently it's off the new studio effort, which I haven't listened to yet, called Plain Noir, which came out a month and a half ago. I will definitely check that out. But yeah, this is really cool metallic hardcore, no wimping out, by which I mean no clean singing. Yeah, like I said, never really paid much attention to this band before, but I will most definitely do now. Next, Wolven Nest announced new record, unveil first track. Wolven Nest are on Van Records, which means that I am basically immediately interested. I have, or having listened to this new single, Disappear, I can happily announce that my interest was not misplaced. This sounds like a blend of really cool sort of 70s psychedelic rock and second wave Scandinavian black metal. So I will most certainly add this to my list of records that I'm looking forward to. And Van Records, in my view, are in that kind of elite echelon of labels like Debo Morty and Season of Mist, where they don't always put out stuff that I like, but generally speaking, when they do put something out, I am almost always interested. Kelt unveil new track. Betschunt, the opening track from Kelt's new studio record, has been released. The Dutch black metalers will be putting out their forthcoming outing titled Offstaan on February 15th. My view on this new Kelt single, meh. There's no faulting the musicianship. I think, it sounds well produced, but it's very, very derivative. And, to me, this is a great example of the bar in black metal being raised exponentially over the last probably three to 4 years. And I have spoken about it an awful lot with both guests and I think on this news section as well. But there's a lot of bands that they brought out these records 10 years ago. You would have listened to it and gone, "Fuck, that's absolutely badass." But when bands like Selbst and Aversa Humanitatis and Utkana and Panzerfaust, put out the records that they've done, what a band like Kelt delivers just sounds like it's something that I've heard 1,000 times before, and therefore, don't necessarily need to hear again. Ominous Ruin debut opening track from their upcoming debut. Ominous Ruin, a great name for a band. Technical death metal force from San Francisco has unleashed an opening track, a ritual from their debut studio album, amidst voices that echo in stone, which is also a cool title for a record, it has to be said. It is scheduled to land in stores on February 26th through Willowtip Records. Ominous Ruin is a great example of something that Sam Bean and I discussed quite a lot on next week's episode, and that is the lack of feeling and vibe and soul in modern death metal. I listened to this the single. The technicality is absolutely off the scale. I mean, like the musicianship that's kind of on the show here is just fucking astounding. But it is just, I don't know, there's just something about it that just doesn't appeal to me. There's a lack of aggression. There's just I think the best way to describe it is toothless. It's like on paper it has everything that it should have, but I would much rather take a death metal record like the first Deicide, or a Blessed Are the Sick, or something that's riddled with errors, but it has that spontaneity and that aggression and that badassness that I like. And this has kind of been my issue with technical death metal, period. I don't give a fuck how well you can play your instruments. I'd rather you've been playing a guitar for 6 months, but you can come up with a track like Mephistopheles than do something like this. So, again, great name for a band, great name for an album, and I think if you're into technical death metal, ultra technical death metal, then you'll check this out. I sure as fuck could never play guitar like these dudes can, not to even mention drums. But yeah, not my vibe. Now, one thing that unfortunately we would not have been able to get away from talking about this week is Alexi Leho of Children of Bodom has passed away at the age of 41. Last week I spoke, obviously, about Brody Lee, which was also sad. Now, I will also, in the interest of full disclosure, say that I personally have always felt like Children of Bodom's music borders on the unlistenable. It's just not my thing. But that being said, 41 is no age for a man to die. And, I know Alexi leaves behind a wife and probably many friends and family members. And the reality is, I might not like their music, but they had a hell of a lot of fans, and Alexi's legacy is going to live on through the fans, through the music that he's left behind. So again, for what it's worth, my condolences, my most heartfelt condolences, go out to the folks that he has left behind. Like I said, 41 is no age for a guy to pass away. All right, let's move on to another news story. Malakim debut record Theon streaming in its entirety. Swedish black metal unit Malakim streamed the entire forthcoming debut album Theon through the Black Metal Promotion YouTube channel. The effort is set for international release this Friday, January the 8th via Iron Bonehead Productions. I'll probably talk about this record next week, actually. I did give it a listen when Black Metal Promotion did this stream. Very, very cool. Really enjoyed it, and I really do, generally speaking, enjoy everything that Iron Bonehead Productions puts out. They're not the most prolific label, but they've got some fucking great bands on their roster. And once again, I did mention this before, but Black Metal Promotion, if you're not subscribed to them yet, you most definitely need to change that, because there is not a single source of good music on the planet that comes anywhere close. Now, the world has been a crazy place over the last week or so, and fortunately, Blabbermouth had their panel of economic and geopolitical experts on hand to help us make sense of it all. And by which I mean, of course, doctors Tommy Lee and Sebastian Bach, Professor Corey Taylor, and loser Paul Stanley over there. Obviously, a lot of what's on here is about the incident that happened at the Capitol building in Washington. A couple of Trump supporters scaled the barricades, broke into Nancy Pelosi's office, missed the opportunity to leave an upper decker in her private bathroom, and instead just took a couple of selfies behind the desk, from what I could tell. Very sadly, a lady was shot by the cops. She was trying to climb through a window. But I'm gonna say a couple of things here. I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to anybody when I make these points, but I'm going to make them anyway. Firstly, my opinion on riots and violent protests is no different to what it was when I spoke about it 4 months ago, when it erupted in America. I think that it is the preserve of fucking idiots, and I think that when you go that route, you have done more harm than anything else to your cause. You've certainly lost me, and frankly speaking, I don't want any of this shit in my society. I don't want to be surrounded by people that do this sort of thing. The second point, and it's possibly slightly contrarian, but I am not going to be lectured about the horrors of the insurrection by people who enabled, cheered on, applauded, or otherwise justified the 3 months worth of shit that took place in America over the summer. I think that either you believe that this sort of thing has a place in civil society or you don't. I don't think there's any kind of middle ground to that. The third thing that I want to say is that I am astounded that people are surprised that this happened, because considering the fact that for the last year, but it's actually been the last several years, but I'd say to an increasing degree over the last year, the media and various folks in the political establishment have been normalizing this shit. So, they have set a precedent by not condemning anything that happened over the summer, that this now is how you get your voice heard, by burning shit, by being destructive, and by acting like a fucking asshole. And if you have any doubt about that, simply go back 4 months and think about or picture the image of the reporter standing in front of not just a building, but a city that was ablaze on CNN, with the caption, "Mostly peaceful protests." Or think about, the likes of Kamala Harris, having a bailout fund for rioters that were being arrested. AOC saying that, I think the quote was something along the lines of, "Protests aren't made to make people feel comfortable." There is one after the other example of people ignoring or normalizing this shit. And so this is the tip of the iceberg. This is going to happen all the time. It's going to happen on the left and the right. So, the folks that normalize this, don't act shocked or surprised. You made your bed, you reap what you sow. Point number 4, I think if you find yourself simplifying the reason for what happened to ultimately land on Orange Man bad, Orange Man supporters bad, I think that you are missing the point entirely, just as those people that simplified the riots over the summer to what happened to George Floyd also missed the point tremendously. And I would say to the people that think that way, how has that thinking worked out for you over the last 4 years? Is society better off or worse off when when folks constantly point to the other side, vilify them, want to oust them from society? And it kind of ties into my 5th point, and really this is my hope for America, and certainly for the American listeners, of which I know there's many to this podcast. I really, really hope that at some point, enough people realize that, as Americans, you are stuck in this together to, and you're stuck in this together for better or worse. And whilst you may have, significant differences from each other, you guys are going to, Americans are going to need to figure out a way to live together and to compromise, because if they don't, on the current trajectory that the country is going, we are all fucked. I don't want to sound too preachy here, but I really do believe in the expression "be the change that you want to see in the world," and the reality of it is, Sleepy Joe, Freedom, Kamala Harris, Orange Man bad, Ted Cruz, Lion Ted Cruz, none of these people are gonna save the country. And none of these people are really gonna make the lick of difference. The political class don't give two shits about the average person. They care about staying in their jobs, and they care about keeping the money flowing to them. For the most part, there's some exceptions, but I am just generally distrusting of politicians. But the fact is, the responsibility for not only taking care of you and yours, but, being civil to your fellow man and finding some way to live together in peace and harmony with folks that don't necessarily agree with you, the responsibility for that rests with everybody individually. And until people take responsibility for that, this is just going to get worse and worse. And that's fucking terrifying because, I think that I said this a while back, once people get to a point where civil discussion no longer can resolve conflict, that has normally been the precursor to very, very dark, dangerous, and bloody times. So, I hope that you guys, don't think I was sounding preachy or anything saying that, but I did want to kind of make those points. I could poke fun at this hobo, John Schaefer from Iced Earth, saying that the U.S. was hijacked by thugs and criminals and running around inside the Capitol building. I could poke fun at Tommy Lee or Sebastian Bach calling out Ace Frehley and Tim Ripper Owens over their Donald Trump support. But, really at this point, what does it help? Those guys are all fucking morons. And, if you listen to most of what they say, they are not just low information, they're the lowest information individuals. And I think one of the worst things about modern society is that social media has elevated the platform that these fucking simpletons have to a point where they're positioned as thought leaders and influencers in our society. They don't influence my thinking. No one who doesn't have the appropriate credentials influences my thinking. And again, if you the people who are quick to run to blabbermouth and vent and try and lecture us on stuff, you can all go and fuck yourselves. And that, my friends, wraps up this week's edition of the news. And that also brings us to the end of this week's episode. I hope that you guys had a good time listening to it. If you've stuck it out all the way to now, you are a brave soul indeed. But I had a blast. I thought John was a fucking cool dude, and I know I keep saying that I need to get people back on, and I very rarely do. But I will get him on at some point in the future if the schedules allow. One guy that I will definitely prioritize getting back on is Sam Bean, and you can understand why when you listen to next week's episode. I still get such a rush when I come off a conversation like that, and you just hit it off with somebody, and you know that it's going to be a fucking killer episode. That's exactly how I felt with Sam. Trust me when I say You guys are going to want to listen to this one end to end. We spoke about so much stuff. Sam's a fucking awesome dude, and I mean, I'm such a huge fan of Antichrist Imperium and werewolves anyway. This just made me an even bigger fan. So that is coming your way next week. In the run up to that, dig into the Necrosphere archives, because there's plenty to listen to, especially if you're new to the channel. Also, check out Mike Hill's Everything Went Black and Metal Matters podcasts, because they are awesome. And have yourself a safe, healthy, and prosperous next week. In fact, actually, one more plug to give. Kelly T. Her channel, I know I had her on 4 episodes ago. She is a fucking badass, and her depth of knowledge on the underground black metal scene really puts mine to shame, quite frankly. So if you want to check out some reviews of bands that are well off the beaten path of normality, then her channel is one to check out. And let's be frank, she's much easier on the eye than old Jackson. So anyway, on that note, from the mean streets of Great Shefford, I am wishing all of you bad motherfuckers a fond farewell.